Okay, welcome everyone. Today we are strapping in for a really high velocity deep dive. We're looking at mobility incentives.
That's right. Specifically, what happens when, well, hundreds of millions of euros suddenly flood a market that seemed pretty resistant? It's quite the story.
It really is. Our mission today is to unpack these sources, detailing this, frankly, incredible event in Italy with EV subsidies.
Hmm.
It feels like a perfect case study. It shows this huge gap, sometimes almost comical, between what people say they think, consumer sentiment.
Right. Versus what actually motivates them when there's serious money on the table, a
Yeah.
pure economic pull.
Exactly. And here's the hook, the fact that kicks this all off.
Yeah.
Over 480 million euros. Government eco-bonus funds, specifically for electric cars and vans.
Gone.
Completely gone. Reserved, locked up, the whole lot in just 6 hours. 6 hours after the booking platform went live.
€500 million vanished. Poof.
Just staggering.
It really was. And, industry watchers, they actually predicted this. They called it a massive click day.
A click day.
Like everyone rushing to click and reserve at the same moment. But I think even they were maybe a bit surprised by the sheer speed of it all. This wasn't like a gradual opening. It was, a digital stampede.
Right.
And it just confirms that the demand for EVs, it's definitely there, but maybe only when the price gets, dramatically slashed by these subsidies.
Okay, let's dig into that speed then, because the numbers are pretty wild. We need to talk about the mechanics here.
Mm.
Over 40,000 vouchers
Yeah,
booked and reserved
40,000 on the Sogai platform.
in less than a typical workday.
Exactly. And look, we're still waiting for the really fine-grained data. But the industry people, they seem pretty confident. They believe the vast majority, like the lion's share of these bonuses went straight to private buyers, regular people.
Not big companies buying fleets or rental agencies.
Probably not the bulk of it, no.
Uh-huh.
Which makes that sudden shift in consumer behavior even more striking, doesn't it?
It does. And wow, that's a massive logistical challenge too, right? Allocating all that money basically
yeah.
instantaneously. Can you maybe explain Soge a bit? Who are they and why is their role important here, technically speaking?
Yeah, Soge is absolutely key. They're the IT company for the Ministry of Economy. Think of them as the central tech hub. They manage these high-pressure IT systems for really crucial national stuff, including this whole subsidy disbursement system.
Okay.
And honestly, in many places, trying to handle 40,000 complex transactions, many needing income checks, all in a few hours, that would just crash the system.
Right, you'd expect meltdown.
Yeah, you would.
Okay.
So the fact that Soge's platform actually held up, processed everything, correctly assigned hundreds of millions worth of reservations in that 6-hour window, well, it says a lot about their tech readiness. But it also speaks volumes about the intense pent-up demand just waiting for the gates to open.
Yeah.
That 6-hour time frame, it's probably the clearest sign you could ask for. It suggests either the incentives were seen as incredibly generous, or maybe the total pot of money was just way too small for the actual number of people ready to jump.
That's a really interesting point. If 40,000 vouchers get snapped up in 6 hours, doesn't that kind of imply the government really miscalculated? Like they didn't realize how many people were just waiting for that financial trigger.
Oh, absolutely. It strongly suggests a massive underestimation of the ready-to-buy market at that price point. They basically created the perfect economic storm, didn't they? Really high incentive value, hitting a, frankly, desperate consumer base ready to go.
Which brings us right to the value. Let's talk about the actual money,
Yes.
because this is where the numbers really explain the rush. What was the absolute maximum discount someone could get? We're talking up to 11,000 euros off an EV.
Precisely. 11,000 euros. That completely changes the math on buying a new car, doesn't it? And the discounts were tiered. They were based on something called the income equivalent situation indicator. It's basically the standard way Italy measures household wealth, to make sure the biggest subsidies go to those with lower incomes.
Makes sense. So how did the tiers work?
Well, the full Euro 1,000, the maximum, that was available if your household IC was under 30,000.
Go.
If your IC was a bit higher, but still below 40,000, you could still get a very significant 9,000 discount.
9,000 is still huge.
It really is. I mean, think about it. An 11,000 discount, that could easily move an electric car from being, aspirational, maybe out of reach, to being genuinely affordable for thousands and thousands of families.
No wonder people were hitting refresh like mad on that website.
Exactly.
But okay, reserving the voucher, that's just step one, right? For those lucky 40,000, the deal isn't actually done yet. There's this crucial 30-day deadline, which sounds like it turns the whole thing into a really high-pressure situation for the next month or so.
This is probably the most critical piece for understanding what happens next in the market. The rule is crystal clear. Every single one of those 40,000 reservations must be linked to a signed purchase contract for an EV within 30 days.
30 days from when they reserved it.
That's right, 30 days. And if the buyer doesn't finalize the deal, maybe they can't get the financing sorted in time, maybe the specific car model they wanted isn't actually available right away,
I know it.
then the voucher just lapses. It expires automatically. And when that happens, the money tied to it flows back into the main pot,
Okay.
and it becomes available again for someone else to try and book.
So the mad 6-hour rush might actually be followed by like little mini rushes
Mhm.
as these unused funds sort of trickle back into the system.
Potentially, yes, little chaotic mini click days, as you say. It could happen over the next month as some deals fall through.
What kind of pressure does that 30-day clock put on the car dealers and manufacturers?
Immense, just immense pressure. You've got, what, 40,000 sales theoretically lined up, but they're all conditional.
Right, they could evaporate.
Exactly. So it forces everyone, especially the dealerships, into this high-stakes race. Get the financing approved, get the paperwork done, and crucially, deliver the car, or at least guarantee delivery, all inside that 30-day window.
That sounds stressful.
It is. The risk is significant. Let's say, just for argument, 10% of those deals don't get finalized. Maybe the buyer gets cold feet. Maybe the loan doesn't come through. Maybe the dealer just can't promise the car fast enough.
Okay.
That's 4,000 high-value vouchers suddenly popping back onto the market. So dealerships have to be really aggressive now, trying to lock these sales down fast, because any delay might mean they lose that customer and the voucher goes back up for grabs, potentially to a rival dealer's customer.
Wow. Okay, so the economic pressure cooker is intense. Now, let's shift gears a bit because this is where the source material gets really, really interesting. We need to talk about the sudden change in consumer behavior. Because up until this 6-hour frenzy, Italy was generally seen as, well, culturally resistant to EVs, wasn't it?
That's putting it mildly, yes.
Yep.
For years, you saw this really strong cultural, almost emotional attachment to the traditional combustion engine. Our sources actually use this vivid term for the resistant consumer. A bit cheeky, maybe. They call them the uomo erectus.
The upright man. Implying sort of stuck in the past.
Something like that.
Okay.
Definitely pointed. Used to describe those who really dug their heels in for years, preferring their familiar petrol or diesel engines. And it wasn't just talk. This resistance was rooted in a love for the whole sensory package, the sound, the rumor dei pistoni, the noise of the pistons.
Even the smell of petrol, apparently.
Exactly. That subtle whiff of gasoline. It was part of the driving culture for many.
And the data backed this up, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. This wasn't just anecdotal feeling. We saw it clearly in the sales figures. Right up until the weeks before this incentive launched, Italy's EV adoption rate, it was stuck around 5% of new car sales. Just 5%.
Compared to the rest of Europe.
Exactly. The European average was closer to 15%. So that 5% really showed how deep the skepticism ran. And sometimes, it was fanned by media discussions, questioning charging convenience, range anxiety, all those usual points.
The standard EV concerns.
Yep. But then, boom, 480 million euros land on the table.
And suddenly,
according to the sources, this stubborn uomo erectus just wakes up,
yes,
snaps out of it. The description is quite striking. They magically transform overnight into, and I'm quoting loosely here, experts in batteries, cobalt, lithium, and who knows what else.
just like that.
Just like that. Why? Because suddenly there were 11,000 very compelling, very green reasons, euros, that is, to become an expert.
Huh. Okay, so the resistance wasn't quite as deep as maybe people thought.
Well, the speed of the pivot is the really telling part. The source material doesn't pull any punches here. It's quite critical, actually. It observes how years of cultural preference, brand loyalty, all that love for the engine noise stuff, it just seemed to evaporate instantly. The second a massive financial carrot was dangled,
So money talks,
Yeah.
basically. Louder than tradition.
it seems so. It completely overrode any previously stated beliefs about engines or range anxiety.
Huh?
That 11,000 figure seems to have been the magic number.
The exact price required to overcome years of habit and maybe cultural inertia.
It looks like the tipping point, yes. And there's definitely some cynicism in the source commentary about how genuine this conversion really is. They even predict, rather skeptically, that many of these brand new EV owners will now be seen besieging the free charging stations outside supermarkets.
Looking for the next saving.
Exactly. It paints a picture of a continued, maybe relentless, search for the maximum economic advantage, suggesting that for a lot of these buyers, this wasn't some deep philosophical shift towards green transport.
No.
No. It was more likely a purely rational economic decision to grab the biggest subsidy available while it lasted.
That really does seem to be the core takeaway, doesn't it? The central insight from this whole deep dive feels crystal clear. When the money is right and 11,000 off is definitely right, any kind of ideological or cultural resistance to a big change, like ditching combustion engines, well, it can just vanish almost overnight.
And if you connect that back to the wider market implications, this event proves, beyond any doubt really, that the demand for, say, 40,000 EVs was there all along, but
But only at a specific price.
exactly, it existed at a heavily subsidized price.
So what does that mean going forward?
Well, a couple of things. First, the immediate pressure. The supply chain now has to scramble to actually deliver these 40,000 cars quickly, thanks to that 30-day rule. But longer term, it raises some pretty serious questions about market sustainability, doesn't it? This 6-hour frenzy basically drained the entire incentive pool.
Yeah, it's empty now.
So if the government doesn't or can't refill that pot, or if these kinds of huge subsidies eventually just disappear altogether, what happens then?
Back to 5%.
The data strongly suggests that without massive government help, Italy's EV market might just snap right back towards that much lower baseline. It shows the market isn't self-sustaining at current unsubsidized prices. Not yet, anyway.
That image of the pressure cooker where ideology just gets crushed by economics in a few hours,
Yeah.
that really sticks.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating snapshot. Thank you for walking us through this truly high-speed deep dive.
My pleasure. It was quite an event to analyze.
So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on, based purely on what we've discussed today. If we saw 40,000 potential EV sales materialize in just 6 hours a moment, where pure economic logic seemingly trumped years of cultural preference, what does that tell us about the true unsubsidized price point? The price where electric cars become genuinely desirable for the mass market without needing government cash. And maybe more importantly, looking at the current market realities. How far away are we from actually reaching that point?